What's up? Welcome in. Hoge Jahns with you into week 2 of free agency. Feels like it's been 2 months.
Why?
Because they haven't done anything.
You're bored like me?
Yeah.
You tell me Byron Pringle doesn't do it for you.
No, that's the one guy I kind of like.
Okay. I like Lucas Patrick. Yeah, but I think there's certain ceilings here that people have to recognize for these guys.
Right. Yeah. Is Lucas Patrick a slight upgrade over Sam Mustipher? Probably.
If you look at some of the Pro Football Focus stats, one would argue it's very slight.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really look
He
at
might
those.
be a bit meaner. That's about it. Which is
He's
fine.
mean. He's probably meaner than Sam. Sam's a nice guy.
Lucas was a nice guy. Seems to be a nice guy. Meaner on the field. Nice guy off it. Flips that switch.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how it all works out, but not a whole lot going on for the Bears. We are going to talk about some things anyway, though, with Sheil Kapadia.
We're going to talk about some things.
Some things. No, Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic does a great job covering pretty much everything for the NFL for The Athletic. And, he's going to have some thoughts on who these guys are. He was the one that had the rankings of all the free agents before free agency started that we've been kind of going off of. So we're excited to have Sheil on today. Got that coming up for you in a few minutes. Follow us on Twitter, at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You can find me on CHGO Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. and at allchgo.com. Johnsy's on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns is where you go to subscribe. And make sure you find us on YouTube if you haven't already. You can watch these podcasts. Hit that subscribe button. The Hoge Jahns YouTube channel is what you need to look for. You find it, hit subscribe, hit the notifications, and we appreciate everybody who has found us there. And, of course, always available wherever you listen to your podcast. So they signed a fullback today.
He's got a cool name, Blazing Game, right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Blazing Game?
I think that's how you say it. He's been on the Titans. I like fullbacks. I'm all for the fullback.
Okay.
What else am I supposed to say about it?
It's fine. You appreciate some good old hard-nosed, straightforward, downhill running game. I get it. With Blazing Game.
Blazing Game.
I don't mean to be mocking the guy's name, but the Bears, after what happened with Larry Ogunjobi, they've been very targeted in their free agency approach, and they haven't broken from it. Call it boring, call it what you want. They obviously have a plan and vision, and this is just what it is.
Which I'm fine with for the most part, except
Well, here's my question for you. Kevin Fishbane and I have posed this question to each other. We'll have an article up on The Athletic on Wednesday about it. Have the Bears done enough to help Justin Fields?
Yeah, my answer is no. That's
There's
my
time.
problem.
There's time.
Yeah.
It's like an overwhelming no at this moment.
Yeah,
There's
that's
still
my big
time, but
concern.
I don't know what changes this. Maybe the draft?
Yeah, but that's the problem. Like, there's time, but is there talent? Right? Like, that list of wide receivers dwindling. Jarvis Landry, haven't heard any connection to the Bears, but he's still out there. Other than that, there's not much. Rookies in the draft, fine. It's great. Most rookie wide receivers have an adjustment period. Most rookie wide receivers cannot be counted on in week 1 to line up in the right spot, run the routes perfectly, know how to game plan against the corners they face. And Justin Fields still needs guys to get open for him.
I was going to say, not only that, you'll have a rookie in an adjustment period, but you have a quarterback in his own adjustment period, learning his second offense in a second year with new offensive coordinator Luke Getsy.
Yeah. And will that quarterback be protected? Big question mark.
At this point in free agency, their lack of moves at offensive tackle would seemingly tell you that they're okay with Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borom. Does it not?
Yeah, it kind of does. Especially because, I mean, the offensive lineman they're reportedly looking at today, Ryan Bates, at Hallis Hall, restricted free agent. He's a guard.
All of 4 starts, a guard.
I know. That's another thing.
So, again, let's temper our excitement. Looks good on film a little bit, but he legitimately has not played a lot of football or started a lot of football games in the NFL.
Yeah. It's tough to be excited about. And here's the thing. I think I mostly am speaking in the same breath as most Bears fans who we interact with on Twitter, social media, listen to this show. I think everybody's okay with the approach of not going all in for 2022 because everyone understands this is not a team that's going to be winning the Super Bowl. But at the same time, everyone also wants to see if there's one thing they see in 2022, it is Justin Fields becoming, Justin Herbert, quite frankly, right? Like, that's the kind of jump you want to see from him in this season.
You still have to provide for your young quarterback. You can't just waste this season. You can't just look at 2023 thinking we got all this cap space, let's go crazy. Let's build the team right now. In 2022, you still have a young quarterback who needs to take steps in his development. And you need to help him with that. It's more than Luke Getsy. It is. It's more than Luke Getsy. It's players. It's the players around him. It's the players protecting him. It's the players catching passes from him. It's all of that. And the Bears haven't done enough, in my opinion. And I don't know what they could do at this point. But I understand it. We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see what's added later in free agency. But at this point, I would say the answer to my original question is no. They have not done enough for Justin Fields.
Well, let's bring in Sheil Kapadia to talk about this with us as he joins us here on the Hoge Jahns podcast. And you can follow him on Twitter. You should be following him at Sheil Kapadia and reading all of his great content on The Athletic, as we know you do. Sheil, we were just talking about really the lack of moves the Bears have made in free agency so far, which I don't think is terribly surprising. But as the names start to come off the board, the talent comes off the board, guys who could actually protect Justin Fields better, run routes better for him. The question we're kind of addressing right now is, have they done enough to help their quarterback take that jump in year 2? Where do you stand on that?
I love this. This is my kind of podcast. I come in and no pleasant. We don't need to ask about family. I join in. You guys are already in the middle of an intense discussion. That's why I love Chicago Bears fans doing this podcast. So thanks for having me. I think when I looked at the Bears going into this offseason, I totally hear what you're saying. Like, priority number 1 above everything else, put the pieces around Justin Fields so that you can get a good evaluation, see if he can improve next year, see what you've got with him. Having said that, I do think they were in a tough situation. I mean, they inherited a mess, Ryan Poles, and so you can't just, like, the first week of free agency, all right, we fixed everything, we're good to go. And so they're kind of in a different situation than some other teams. So I would understand some frustration if you're a Bears fan and say, man, we would have loved to get a great wide receiver in here, or maybe done a little bit more on the offensive line. I think those things are fair. I think they've taken a more methodical, patient approach with free agency, which, a lot of years, if you look at it, that's smarter than just going out on day one and spending a lot of money. So I like some of the moves that they made. I do feel like we have an incomplete picture. I think you're right. I think if we got all the way up to the draft and you said, hey, this is what they've got, I'd say, man, I think they probably would have liked to be a little bit more aggressive in addressing some of those needs offensively.
Okay, Sheil, so how's the family?
Please. No, I'm in now. I'm in the zone. Let's keep it going. Yeah.
Let me go to your grades here. So you have how should I describe this? The daily task of grading all these free agency moves made by these teams. The Bears just signed a fullback. I have not seen your grade on that yet. So just
come on, step
it
up, Sheil.
I
didn't even know that. So you're breaking news to me. Yeah.
Blazing Game, I believe is his last name.
Okay.
Defensive end, El-Quadin Muhammad, you gave him a B. Defensive lineman, Justin Jones, a B. Wide receiver, Byron Pringle, B+. Offensive lineman, or the Bears' new starting center, Lucas Patrick, A-. So overall, you like what the Bears have done in terms of the cost, the player, the fit, all of that.
I think they've made reasonable moves so far. Yeah, like the Lucas Pat. I know this sounds like very, like I'm trying to be a football hipster or something, that I really like the Lucas Patrick move here. But like those are the kinds of smart moves in free agency to me that really matter. You get a guy who's been a starter, who's played multiple positions, and you're not paying a crazy amount to get him. A lot of times, like you look at a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, they needed offensive line help, and they signed Brandon Scherf, who's 30 years old, top of the market, $16.5 million a year, and he's had injury issues. Like those are the signings that I typically would grade lower, because it's like, especially with offensive line, you don't always need to swing for a home run. Like you need guys who are competent, who are going to be out there, who have some positional versatility. So I liked that one. The defensive line ones, they were okay. Again, I think if you're a Bears fan and you say, man, I wish they would have done a little bit more there after trading Khalil Mack, I can totally understand that. But at least you're getting younger players who are 26, 27 years old. You can talk yourself into them being ascending players. Maybe their best football is ahead of them, and you're paying $5-6 million a year, which is not a lot of money if you expect a guy to be a starter specifically, but even if they're a rotational player. So I like those moves. Byron Pringle to me is a classic. Like a lot of times you go into free agency and you say, let's address our needs so that when we go into the draft, we're not saying we have to get someone here or we're totally screwed. You want to be able to, like the Sunday before the draft starts, say, if we needed to play a game today with the guys we have, we would be able to do that. It doesn't mean we'd have our best players out there and we have a complete roster, but you want to be able to do that. That's kind of how you avoid, in my opinion, mistakes in the draft. So like Pringle, that's a classic move that addresses that to me. 1 year, $6 million. Our Bears fans rushing out and saying, hey, you gotta get Byron Pringle jerseys in the fan shop. I need those to wear in week 1. No, of course they're not saying that. You might not be that excited about it. At the same time, if he needs to play and is your second wide receiver, that's not the ideal outcome, but that's okay. If he's your fourth wide receiver, your third wide receiver, that's a great outcome. So you can kind of try to draft over him in the first or second round, and that's how you build depth. So yeah, I think overall they haven't sort of spent frivolously. The Ogunjobi signing probably would have been a little bit more controversial, and that didn't end up going through. There are questions with some of these signings. Justin Jones, good player when he's played, has had injury issues. Kadeem Muhammad, last year, career year, he was a free agent last year, and he only got a 1 year, $2.9 million deal. So I'm always a little cautious with those when you say, well, did it really change that much in 1 year, what the league's evaluation was of him? So again, I'm not telling you that these guys are going to lead them to a Super Bowl, but you kind of had to just fill some needs with reasonable contracts. Don't get yourself in a bad position where you're a year from now saying, why did we make those deals? They're screwing up our cap. I think that's kind of what they did.
I'm glad you brought up the Jaguars, because every year they go crazy. Like they set the market, they spend outrageously. I think that's a great way to put it. They just spend, giving guys like Christian Kirk, who've never had 1,000-yard receiving seasons, outrageous contracts. They're like the perfect example of trying to buy their way out of trouble, and I can't tell you when it's actually worked out for them. Have you?
No, I mean they've been probably the worst franchise in the NFL since Shad Khan bought the team maybe 10 years ago or so. I think they've had more than 6 wins one time. I mean, like in this year, the way the NFL is set up, like that is actually hard to do, to be that bad for an extended period of time. So one of my offseason rules is don't fall in love, whether it comes with free agency or trades or the draft. Like, don't just be like, oh my God, Christian Kirk, we've got to have this player. You're picturing how he fits in your offense with Trevor Lawrence, and you're saying it's going to be beautiful. And the agent's like, all right, how about a little bit more? All right, how about we go up to 14? Oh, okay, what about 16, 18? Yeah, sure, yeah, come on in. When we fly them in, like, I don't even know if the Jaguars are negotiating these deals or the agent's calling them going, here's what we want, and they're going, all right, yeah, come on in. We'll see you at the facility tomorrow. So that is the approach that generally fails in free agency, where you look back a year or two later and you go, all right, we can understand why this team is a disaster.
Don't fall in love. Why didn't you tell Ryan Pace that in 2017 before the draft?
Listen, I think I originally wrote it 2 years ago. Don't fall in love. You can take that if that's life advice, if that's when, you can take that in a number of different directions. I apply
life advice that I'm screwed here.
I apply it to the NFL. I just think, anytime you feel like, hey, we're one piece away, or just, you should always be kind of thinking, what's the worst case scenario if we make this move? Honestly, if I were like a GM, I would assign one person on my staff. Hey, every move we're thinking about making, you're going to come in, you're going to be the Debbie Downer. Maybe it's, maybe you have a friend who's just negative about everything. Like, you want that guy. And he comes in and he says, all right, everyone in here, analytics, coaching, personnel, the owner, you all love this move. Well, let me tell you the ways in which this is going to backfire, because you need that balance. Because anytime you think it's a certain thing, and we'll hear it here in draft season, plug this guy in for the next 8 years, or this guy's a surefire Pro Bowler. No, they're not. We see it every year that there's not. And so you have to operate with that understanding of uncertainty and think every move we make, no matter how much we love it and how many boxes we feel like it's checked, there's always going to be that degree of uncertainty. And I think the GMs that get themselves in trouble, they don't operate that way.
We have that guy on this podcast. His name's Kevin Fishbane.
The Fishman, of course.
We bring him in, and he just, he gives us all the reality checks. Hey, where were you on Larry Ogunjobi before you knew he was going to fail or did fail his physical? And if there's a situation where the market kind of resets given that information and he's available later in the offseason, do you still feel like that's a fit for a lower price for the Bears?
Yeah, I didn't think that was a bad move. It was an aggressive move, but to me, he was a really good player last year. 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits. I think like every defensive coach I feel like you talk to in the NFL, they're like, interior pass rush is hard to find, and we will place a premium on that. And so if it's a guy who's under 30 and who's able to give you that, I feel like teams will pay. Now, it's funny because was that the first day of free agency when they made that move?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so as I'm doing this analysis in real time, I was like, okay, $13.5 million or whatever it was, something close to that. It's not crazy. It's aggressive, but it's not crazy. Now, when you kind of zoom out, that would have been pretty aggressive because I think other than Fletcher Cox is getting 1 year, $14 million from the Eagles, I think other than that, I don't think there's been an interior defensive lineman who's gotten close to that. I think $10 million has been the max there. So I don't know how that works. If it's you fail a physical, we have injury concerns, but we still like you. We'd bring you back at this number. If there are hurt feelings where it's I understand it. It's a business. But I think he would certainly be, he would fit with their other additions. Guys in their mid to late 20s, have some upside, play a position that you need. I don't think that would be a bad move.
Speaking of hurt feelings and whatnot, I want to talk to you about this quarterback trade market because it's every year these quarterback dominoes are something to watch. It's like the past 3 or 4 years in a row, these big trades where these legitimate starters, guys who have been, some of them Pro Bowlers in this league, are now with different teams. How do you feel about Matt Ryan with the Colts? Or here we go with Trubisky in Pittsburgh. Other trades, Carson Wentz in Washington. All these musical chairs that now happen with quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. What do you think about these markets, these trade markets? And the side part of that is the free agency market that develops now for these veteran quarterbacks.
Yeah, the trades are so hard to predict, the compensation, when I'm trying to look ahead and do analysis, because every time you think, no way is a team going to give up X and Y for quarterback X, like Sam Darnold last offseason. People are going, no one's going to give it. And then all of a sudden it's 3 picks, including a second rounder. This offseason, the Colts owner is literally standing outside his jet or whatever it was, letting the world know that basically Carson Wentz is not stepping foot in my building again. And so you would think, oh man, you're kind of losing some leverage there. And then you get 2 picks, a third and another third that can turn into a second. So even with someone like Baker Mayfield, maybe it will turn out that there's not a great market for him and that teams will have to take on his salary. But I'm always kind of just wait. There's typically one team that gets kind of desperate. So we'll see what happens with Baker and Jimmy Garoppolo are sort of the 2 guys still out there. And then the Panthers and the Seahawks, I think, are the 2 teams that probably could make a move. But kind of zooming out, my big picture thing with quarterbacks right now is you have to swing for the fences. Yep. It's I feel like I'm pretty sure you guys are around my age, maybe a little bit younger, but I feel like there was a time growing up where it was you could pick out 8, 10 teams any season and they're just like, this team has no chance to even sniff the playoffs because their quarterback is so terrible. It's just not going to happen for him. And I feel like that's changed. Now I feel like you look at most quarterback situations in the NFL, you certainly have the elite guys, and then you have this tier, and it's a big tier of kind of the middle class where it's like, hey, if things break their way, they could win 9 or 10 games and make the playoffs next year with this guy. And then you have kind of the younger guys who are unknowns, Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. But I feel like the mistakes teams make now are when they look at one of those guys in that middle grouping and say, we have to have one of those guys, and let's trade multiple picks and pay a lot of money for him, like Washington did with Carson Wentz. I mean, you could have had Teddy Bridgewater for 1 year, $6.5 million, or you could have Carson Wentz for $28.3 million plus a third that turns into a second. Now, you might think Wentz is a better quarterback. I would bet if they both played 17 games next year, their statistics would be pretty similar. And so I think you don't want to overpay for competency right now. So you want to accumulate your assets. And then if you're a team that doesn't have a guy this year, you say, let's just chill. I thought the Trubisky move was fine by the Steelers. If they have to play Trubisky this year, that's fine. He's not going to be great, but you're not going to be scoring 7 points a game. He can be okay for you. You can address it in the draft. It's not an either or proposition. I mean, you sign Trubisky for $7 million, and then you draft Malik Willis. To me, great plan. It might not work out, but that is a smart plan over doing something like trading for Carson Wentz. So I think a lot of teams, and this isn't my unique opinion, I'm sure a lot of people have made this point, watched that Bills-Chiefs game with Mahomes and Josh Allen and just kind of sat back and maybe thought, we felt one way about our quarterback situation a week ago, but do we have a guy that can compete in that type of environment and put everyone on his back and lift everyone around him? And it doesn't mean you necessarily have that guy right now, but do you have a guy with that upside? The Bears would say, yeah, we feel like if everything breaks for Justin Fields, he can play in that game. The Cardinals would say, if we improve with Kyler Murray, he can play in that game. You can name, I would say probably 8 to 10 guys who feel confident. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to work out, but it's a valid swing to take. And so that's kind of how I feel with with a lot of these moves that are being made. Don't give up a lot to get the middle of the road guy who might win you 9 or 10 games next year. Be patient and take some big swings.
But that's the desperation of the position, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's it's not enough. Yeah.
And it's also easy for me to say because job security plays into it, as you guys know, having covered the Bears. I mean, sometimes it's easy for me to sit here in my home office and say, do that. If I were a GM and I just moved my family to a city and, man, we're on the hot seat and I'm saying to the owner, yeah, we're just going to chill here for a year. And hopefully, something becomes available next year. He might be like, I don't think so. That's not why I hired you. So there are different dynamics that come into play. And you're right. I mean, it is supply and demand, but I do feel like we're in a weird time where the supply of at least okay guys is higher than it's been in a long time. I mean, I don't love Marcus Mariota, but if you want to sign Marcus Mariota for $7 million for a year while you get some things in order and figure it out, to me, that's more of a worthwhile plan than trading multiple premium picks for somebody who's probably not going to get you anywhere anyway.
What did you think about the DeVante Adams trade?
Yeah, that was another one of those, as you guys know, terms get disclosed right away, and then a day or two later it changes. So at the time, I think that's one where we have to look at two teams in very different situations. I mean, the Packers should be approaching this like the Rams, all in. We've got Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back MVPs. He's 38 years old. We need to win right now. And so I hated it for them. And people said, what are you talking about? They got a first and a second. They didn't have to pay him. And I said, that's fine. Talk to me in week 3 next year when you're going, Aaron Rodgers has nobody to throw to. And, you can say they could find this year's A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson. And that's true, they could, but that's there's possible and then there's probable. And for every Justin Jefferson, there are 2 or 3 guys who go through the usual growing pains of a rookie wide receiver. And so there are no guarantees there. And so to me, everything is about offensive efficiency, and the Packers had offensive efficiency the last 2 years. They were knocking on the door. To me, I would have said, listen, DeVante, I know you want to play with Derek Carr, but you're on the franchise tag and we really value you and we're going to pay you a lot of money. And if you want to sit out the year and give up $20 million, that's fine, but we just can't give you up. That's where you got to work on the relationships and be like, we have the leverage. That's what the franchise tag is for. So I didn't like it from the Packers' perspective at all. We'll see what they do the rest of the offseason. And then the Raiders, I can understand it. It makes them more exciting. It makes them tougher to defend. So I think, it's reasonable in that respect. At the same time, you're giving up a first and a second for a wide receiver who's going to turn 30 years old this year, and you're paying him at the top of the market. That's just going to come with risk. I mean, if it's a great wide receiver who's on a rookie contract, or if it's somebody who's 27 years old, maybe I feel a little bit differently. Typically, I like when teams are aggressive and just kind of are like, let's go get a great player, and Adams is a great player. So I wouldn't say it was a terrible move, but I also am not confident like others that all of a sudden the Raiders are Super Bowl contenders.
Absolutely. All right, Sheil, a lot of great insight. We appreciate you joining us today. Want to make sure our listeners and viewers are following you on Twitter at Sheil Kapadia. Check out all his great work, all those grades on The Athletic. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you go check it out, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns. Thanks, Sheil.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Sheil.
All right, there he is, Sheil Kapadia, who's been really just a workhorse during free agency. You could say he's doing more work than the Bears are. You'd probably be wrong though. They're still working.
Yeah.
Did you know that 90% of coffee from the grocery store is actually stale? You heard that right. The coffee you know and think you love needs an upgrade. Instead of rebuying the same old, let Trade Coffee send you something freshly roasted that you're going to love. Trade sells the freshest roasted and ethically sourced beans from America's best independent roasters. They ship it to you free as often as you like, whole or ground. Whether you're a coffee nerd or just want a better daily cup, Trade's real coffee experts taste test over 400 roasts and use technology to match you to your ideal coffee based on your preferences and brewing method. Take the coffee quiz to get started. Trade Coffee guarantees you'll love your first bag or they'll replace it for free. Trade has been featured by the New York Times, Wired, GQ, and has delivered over 5 million bags of coffee. Their subscription is no hassle. Skip the shipments, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. And for our listeners right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/Adam22. To get started, take their quiz at drinktrade.com/Adam22 and start your journey to your perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/Adam22 for $20 off your first 3 bags.
With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh has fit and wholesome recipes for satisfying and nutritious meals that you can feel good about, with 6 recipes per week to choose from, including low-calorie and carb-conscious options. HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your order online or in their app. Easily change your delivery day, food preferences, and plan size, or skip a week whenever you need to. Customize your favorite dishes with their new Hello Custom offerings by swapping out one protein or a side for another, upgrading for more luxe experience, or even adding a protein to a veggie meal. That means more choices, more variety, and more meals truly tailored to you. I know for myself, I'm always trying to stay in shape and eat well, but I also eat fast with a busy schedule with the kids, their sports, my own work, and HelloFresh fits all of our needs, me and my entire family. So go to HelloFresh.com/16Adam22 and use code 16Adam22 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com/16Adam22 and use code 16Adam22 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Not signing, but working. Which is fine. What would you give the grade on the fullback? C?
A+++ because it's a fullback.
Oh, you like fullbacks that much, huh?
I like having a fullback on the team.
I feel like the last noteworthy fullback on the team was Paul Lasicki, and he forever changed Kyle Long's career.
how dare you disrespect Michael Burton like that?
Oh, yeah. Mitch's old roommate.
And Michael Burton actually was a solid player.
Maybe Paul Lasicki was just some more headlines because, again, Kyle Long's career was never the same again.
Yeah, he's the one that rolled up Kyle Long. Now, I would have gone out and gotten Alec Ingold, who's been a very good player with the Raiders, and they surprisingly let him go, and he signed with Miami. But I also don't think this seems like a signing where the Bears are like flirting with the idea of using a fullback, and maybe not all the way in. And that's your fullback breakdown here on Hoge Jahns.
It's been that type of free agency.
It really has. And
there's still some like notable names available out there.
Give me two.
Bobby Wagner, Jadeveon Clowney, Odell Beckham Jr., Stephon Gilmore. They're older guys. Those are some names. Jarvis Landry. You mentioned him earlier.
Some of those guys end up like waiting for a while. Maybe post-draft. Maybe even in training camp sometimes. Someone's going to need a body. Remember Jason Peters is a perfect example.
Yeah, but he was like 38.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
Tyrann Matthews 30.
Every year there's a couple of those guys that wait all the way till August.
And everybody I just listed, there's a starter on your team. A starter on this Bears team.
Yeah, I'd take Bobby Wagner.
You tell me he's better than Nicholas Morrow?
Yeah, I'm telling you that. But does he play the position that the Bears have already decided Roquan Smith's going to play?
I don't care. You can figure it out with Roquan Smith and Bobby Wagner.
Yeah,
couldn't
probably.
you for a year or two?
Yeah, I would think so.
I generally just don't like the idea that the Bears just can't go full. There's no such thing as a full rebuild to me.
That's what I'm struggling with too, and I think there's already too many pieces on this team that prevent the team from being that bad.
Like beyond just providing for Justin Fields, like your team still wants to be competent, respectable.
Also, one thing we broke down on the CHGO Bears podcast today. Have you seen the quarterbacks they're about to play this year? Like, it's not a daunting list.
The NFC North isn't daunting. It got worse because of the DeVante Adams trade.
Absolutely. Like, even in the most extreme case of the quarterbacks you play this year, Aaron Rodgers is far away the best, although Josh Allen's on the schedule too, so he's there. But other than that, there's a pretty big step down to Mac Jones, to Kirk Cousins, to Zach Wilson.
It's that middle tier. Well, Zach Wilson's in that lower tier, but that middle class tier that Sheil was just talking about.
I don't think it's that crazy that in a lot of these games you go into, you would actually say, yeah, I'd prefer to have Justin Fields as my quarterback. Like to me, that's a real thing that could happen this year. And if we're in like week 4, week 5, and we're still talking about how they can't protect him, that's tough to swallow.
How nobody's open?
Yeah, that's it. Like, this wide receiver group is worse right now.
Yeah, that was a conversation we were having when they had Allen Robinson.
Yep.
Like, why is nobody open? Now, some of that was scheme related. Probably some of that was Allen Robinson related. Some of that was probably Justin Fields related. But you need upgrades at those positions. That position, that's a premier position.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens here. I feel like I keep saying that. Like, let's give it a couple more days. Let's see who else comes in here.
People are telling us to be patient. But again, free agency in itself is not a patient process. It doesn't lend to patience.
Yeah. Well, you heard it even there from Sheil. Like, obviously he definitely falls in that category of, be cautious, don't spend too much money. But then he also said there at the end, if there's a great player available, it's okay to be aggressive to go get him. Like DeVante Adams. So, and that's why the Chargers still went out and were aggressive in getting Khalil Mack.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's elite and special playmakers on either side of the ball that are still available. I mean, Bobby Wagner's probably past his prime, but Bobby Wagner is a starter in the Chicago Bears. You know, I could go down this whole list of players that are still available and call them starters for the Bears. That in itself is a problem.
All right. Well, we'll be back Thursday. Maybe there'll be more signings. But I do appreciate Sheil Kapadia coming on today. Really good stuff. The Vikings, by the way, did sign Zadarius Smith today.
3-year deal, I believe.
So he stays in the NFC North after almost going to the Ravens. He was supposedly in agreement to go back to the Ravens. That falls through. He ends up going to Minnesota and joining the Vikings. So, all right. And they re-signed Sean Mannion.
Who?
Backup quarterback Sean Mannion.
The tall guy.
Yeah, the tall guy. Who should be in that category of like Chase Daniel. Just keeps getting paid and paid and paid and never play. Which is good for him.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, the big news of the day for the Chicago Bears. They have a fullback. Kari Blasingame.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. And I like fullback, so I'm okay with it. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. Read us. I'm at allchgo.com. Johnsy's on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns. Please subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification button. Appreciate you guys. And check out the CHGO Bears podcast too, Monday through Friday. We had Brian Urlacher on yesterday if you want to check that out. He was as unfiltered as I've ever heard him, Johnsy.
A lot of swear words.
Just F-bombs flying.
I fucking love it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
No.
That was good. That was good. All right. That was Johnsy, by the way, for everybody listening in their cars with their children.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. It was me. All right. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
See ya.
The Packers, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, go Bears.